Everybody, welcome to the First Issue Club podcast. We are the comic book podcast that covers the best, the newest first issues each and every week, and we read them together and talk about them on this podcast. It's now November. We're in November.
Can you believe it?
It's No Shave November. I think some people aren't masturbating during November. There's a lot of things that go into November.
And shaving.
And shaving, yes. No shaving and no masturbating during November.
What's that one called? No Nut November?
Thank you. Thank you, Caitlin.
I never thought I would hear that come from your mouth ever.
Well, I was just trying to think. Like, No Shave has always had like a...
Yeah, like a alliteration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was Movember? What was that? Was that a thing?
That's keeping your mustache for men's testicular cancer awareness.
Oh, cool.
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was related to Missouri.
No, the guy named Mo started it.
Show me
Okay.
timber.
We, as you can hear, we have the full club back in action. It's been a while since we've been together.
Been a while.
Since I last got back with the club.
Wow.
I am Budget King.
Mike D.
Greg Lichtai.
Caitlin.
And this week we are covering Taskmaster on Marvel and Punchline on DC. This week's episode is all about characters getting their first issues in the big two. So, right? There's never been a Taskmaster or Punchline book.
There has been a Taskmaster book.
There has been.
Yeah, it was
There
back in
has to have been.
2002.
Okay, so the
Do
first
your research before you just go out spouting nonsense.
the first real Taskmaster book that matters. This issue is about the first real books of these characters getting. First Punchline book at least, okay?
For sure.
But we got some news to cover before we get into those books, those hot books.
Speaking of Taskmaster, you may have noticed that the cover of it was an homage to the Cable New Mutants cover.
Right.
New Mutants number 87.
Got it.
It's one of the most copied, homaged covers that exists in comics.
And if you can picture it in your head, it's Cable and there's 4 circles of like people
in like targets on the right-hand side.
because Cable wields a gun.
That's exactly right. So a big thing in comics is that you'll write after and then the artist name. So you would write after Leffield
Sure.
if you're copying his art or
Like a
his
little tip of the
composition.
hat.
Right, exactly. And so people and different creators get really protective over artists copying their work, composition, etc., without giving some sort of credit or nod.
I would agree to that.
It's a fine line in the comics world between stealing and doing an honor to somebody, right? So I was looking this up because I was like, man, this must be like the 50th cover I've seen do this. And I found this article that says when all these people are writing after Leffield, they should be writing after Gil Kane. So you look at this cover, there's the original New Mutants Cable cover.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we've got this Avengers 145 cover that is unmistakably copied from.
So you're saying that the left field famous Cable cover was actually a copy or an homage?
It should have been written as after Kane.
Was it already done like that when he had done the cover?
Yeah.
People were already saying like after.
Oh, sorry. I don't know about that.
So I guess the first time it was copied was Leffield.
That makes sense.
If that's what we're saying, yeah. And subsequently, people have always said after Leffield, Leffield should have attributed it to Kane.
Yeah.
Right.
And since Gil Kane should have this legacy of having one of the most copied covers of all time, right?
Right.
We've got a side-by-side of their arms, the guns. Every little detail in the hands is like 1-to-1.
Yeah,
Same with
right.
the composition of the gun. It's like almost the exact same gun.
You notice no feet on both.
We had to be clever about getting rid of those feet on covers for Rob Liefeld. But obviously we're scrolling through here and there's just like cover after cover after cover
Wow.
that
Yeah.
it's been copied on, and then again with Taskmaster this week. So I thought that was an interesting bit of information. Next time you're at your comic shop and see one of those and someone says, oh, it's that Leffield cover, you can be
Actually.
like, adjust my glasses.
Has Rob said anything about this kind of accusation? Because it seems like a thing where Rob's never quiet about
Yeah.
anything. He's always vocal, whether it be on his YouTube channel or on Twitter. He's a loudmouth. So if these accusations have came out against him, I would assume he would be the first one to, you know, stick up for himself.
To be honest, we don't know where he stands on this.
No, we don't.
So he's not necessarily out and out not giving credit to Gil Kane.
Well, I mean, I think he hasn't given him
Well,
credit.
I think the issue is that it's courtesy to say after someone on the cover itself. So as part of the artwork, it's extremely customary to write that original creator's name.
So if it
and he
wasn't
did not in this case.
customary at the time, then everybody after him was just not paying attention to the fact that he already jacked it from someone.
Right.
Or not did a nod to Gil Kane.
Right.
All right. Also, Thought Bubble out of Leeds, the convention went online, and Mike, you attended some of this.
Exactly right. I went to some panels. So as of
How was that red eye back here to record? That
Oh,
was insane.
brutal. I got a COVID warning when I Googled it. Don't go anywhere physical for this. But yeah, one of the biggest conventions in Europe, and kind of like a cool, I shouldn't say biggest conventions, one of like the biggest underground independent creator sort of conventions. But they're opening up to more publishers and more prominent artists, like think your Jeff Lemire and Matt Kent types. And those two actually had a panel today that I watched that was
Oh,
great.
cool.
They talked a little bit about their new Kickstarter book. They actually made mention of the Keanu Reeves Matt Kent book, Berserker, because the guy hosting the panel was like, speaking of, that made like $1.4 million, that Kickstarter. And it was really interesting to see Matt Kent's reaction, because he was like, just want to be clear, I don't get any of that money. Greg and I had a conversation on our Patreon, a week ago, about how it feels kind of icky that publishers are kickstarting things when they're the people who've got the
Money in the clout.
capital and the ability to get things published, whereas Kickstarter's meant for more people who are trying to like
yeah.
It seems like they shouldn't be allowed to do it.
It does.
Kickstarter is kind of the new pre-release. It's like become just a format of
Which
a way.
sucks, and it should not be that.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like, hey, I couldn't do this without your financing, so help me out. I'm the little guy.
Right. So his perspective on it was that initially he didn't like it, and he was getting a lot of commentary from people saying they didn't like it. But in the same respect, he felt like the link shareability of it made it open a lot of doors to people who would otherwise have not pre-ordered a graphic novel or gone out and purchased a comic.
Right.
That having it on Kickstarter and this new thing that you feel like you're a part of brought a lot of new people to the medium. And for him, that's an exciting thing, especially since it's one of his books. So I get that perspective. It's hard to rationalize when you're just like involved in a thing that
It
the
could also
publisher
be-
says, hey, we're doing this now.
Like a gracious way of just saying, like, I'm not going to throw the baby out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad a lot of new people liked this, but it still sucks that
Yeah.
I don't actually get any of that, and it wasn't something I could do.
Well, I would just say Leeds is interesting, and I think that there's some value in checking out some of these digital conventions, because they are trying to do a lot to say, normally new creators would have a great springboard to table and sell their stuff that they're not getting this year. So come to this website, check out these people's wares, order things that interest you, support creators. And that's really a huge focus of Thought Bubble Leads. So that site's going to stay up for a while. You can peruse all different types of
Did you have to pay
creators.
anything to attend?
No, free. You can make a donation and they'll send you a Tula Toy print and a t-shirt that would have been like the admission price.
Sure,
So
yeah.
you get something physical and fun.
That's awesome. It's
To
a way to do
support
So
it.
what is that? Thoughtbubble.com?
I think it's Thought Bubble Leads.
Okay.
So I think if you just Google Thought Bubble Convention, it'll
Yep.
come up.
You'll find it.
Or if you're on Explorer. Sorry, I didn't mean to say Google. Okay, guys.
Yeah, we still ride with Netscape, so easy.
Ask
Is
Jeeves.
Bing even a thing anymore? I don't know that it
think,
is.
I
Bing is a
think
thing.
it is.
Ask Jeeves? No.
Gone.
It's just Jeeves.
Okay, there we go.
Imbecile.
In other news, I'm sorry, I have to pause to laugh at being called imbecile.
For not knowing
For a search engine.
that Ask Jeeves had been
You
changed
fucking casual.
to Jeeves.
What a simp. Okay, so Boom, I think relaunched might be the word, but at least came out with a #1 title titled Power Rangers, which would be that they are essentially re-upping it. And Ryan Parrott is still on it. That comic book was pretty hot. I knew it mostly because of the insane covers that it had.
Oh, some of them were like $500 too. There were some cool covers that were just too out of my price range.
And they were just doing some like banana stuff with like space, and they launched a couple new characters and things like that. We have talked about doing a Power Rangers book for a long time. We didn't cover this one, but just the big thing in here is that there's kind of two branches of Power Rangers, and they're getting an evil dude named Dracon to like actually become like a Power Ranger with them. I would just say that like Power Rangers is moved into very thoroughly like mech sci-fi stuff, and it's like I remember it as like a 5th grader being excited to like watch it, and it's just like not that anymore, in case you didn't know.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the TV show that we watched when we were in 5th and 6th grade was really a Monster of the Week type show. You would get the
Kaiju.
you'd get the opening sequence of them doing something, and then Rita Repulsa or Zordon. No, Zordon was the good guy.
Yeah.
Whatever. They would like combine these two parts and put ooze on them, and then put it out into the world. And you're right, it has evolved now into this giant soap opera out in space with mechs and, alternate reality Power Rangers, and it has, grabbed the existing Power Ranger fan base by the eyeballs, and it has not let go, and it's just blossomed into this beautiful thing.
So you're saying it's transcended like nostalgia.
Yeah. Well, I think it also
Kind of like what TMNT's doing, the same thing.
yeah, and I'll admit my guiltiness of this, where it's like I was just on the cusp of being into Power Rangers when people were making fun of me for it. So like I remember going over to a friend's house
Totally.
to watch, and like I verbatim, this is crazy and this dates me. They had purchased a Jenny McCarthy poster at like a Sam Goody, and they were like super excited about it, and I was like, I have to see who is announced that the White Ranger is gonna be, and I just watched it.
I remember coming home after school and putting it on and being like, I know I'm too old for this, but I still want to watch it. And like you said, that was in like, even in like 4th grade, I was like, I shouldn't like this.
Yeah.
And I think I've got hangover from that still, where I'm like, I can't get into it. This is for kids, but it definitely has transcended that a bit.
And there was a lot of like, it's like, it was very heavily martial arts. It was like kids that are normal high school kids that also fight in mech. So it's like, there's a YA nature to it, but it's like, it's not kids show anymore. And I love that they were able to scale it up. So
one of the reasons I'd have stayed away from it thus far has been that being a huge sci-fi fantasy thing with a lot of background that's made it soap opera-y and led it to this place, it always felt like I'd be cracking open like a L. Ron Hubbard book to the middle and just being like, what the fuck is going on?
So I would say that this book I would give it a B in like
Making it feel like a first issue.
new readability. There was a lot of shit I just didn't know, and they didn't care. So this comic book was not necessary. This comic book was for previous Power Rangers fans.
Okay.
And I love that it's also on Boom and not IDW, which is like, doesn't really matter, but it
legitimizes it a little more.
to me it does.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like,
IDW things they do with
They would have already met the Ghostbusters.
it feels like less of a cash grab.
yes,
Yeah.
IDW is very much a cash grab feeling.
Although
Not that there haven't ever been quality stories,
gonna-
but it's just like the naming and the
Yeah.
branding and
we shit on IDW for that, but they also do have a good repertoire of other books
Yeah.
and stuff. Which one? I think that Scarent Hood was out on IDW.
Oh, and it was great.
I really liked it.
This week, yeah, which is a 1 in 4, which is I've actually never.
That seems too short.
I know. I don't
for
know how.
what I read.
I don't know how they're gonna finish
I
that
don't
book.
either.
So, but IDW does have like some secret sleepers a lot.
They do.
Well, No Not November has a lot of news. We got 2 more news hits to get through really quickly. DuckTales was announced as I guess a reboot technically of the TV show.
Woo!
And you guys, sorry, not DuckTales, Darkwing Duck was announced. But the reason I said DuckTales is because you guys were fans of the DuckTales series, and I think it's the same creative team. Is that correct?
Yep. So far, it came out 3 years ago. The update on Disney Plus.
And Darkwing's in it.
Yes.
Oh, really?
A lot of the old familiar faces from like those Saturday morning cartoon shows like Tailspin and Darkwing Duck and DuckTales, and Mickey Mouse. They're all in there. They make weird appearances and they're updated, and you get these updated stories, and it's just a phenomenal TV show for children that adults have latched onto, much like that horse show, My Little Pony.
BoJack Horseman? Oh, okay.
Way different things of the spectrum, my man.
So
I would say different than, like, it didn't create, like, Brony level cult status. I think it's
Right.
more like I don't know that it has transcended nostalgia unless.
No, it definitely heavily relies on nostalgia
Yeah.
to be
But it is
successful.
quality. It is on its own, just very entertaining.
So, are you guys fans of the extended Duckiverse?
I would call myself a philosopher, yeah.
Sure.
Oh.
So if you feel like you need to quiz me, go right ahead. I think I will pass quite handedly.
My collection is it is not necessarily a great comic book collection, but the one thing that I do strive for is getting first appearances of like 90s cartoons.
Uh-huh.
So in some 80s, so I have like the first appearance of Masters of the Universe as like a comic book, and then I have a lot of Ninja Turtles stuff, like which is all popping right now. But I got the notification for my first appearance of Darkwing Duck because it was like, oh, this is going to be a show now, so it'll go from worth $3 to worth maybe
$6.
maybe $8. Yes.
So all those
Wonderful.
quarter Darkwing Duck books that you own, you can now sell them for
Yeah.
heaps and heaps of money.
It makes my collection like just rise above like not interesting at all.
Too kind of interesting.
Yeah, to like moderately get the fuck out of here, kid.
All I remember about Darkwing Duck was Launchpad McQuack. That name just stuck in my head.
Yeah,
He's in it, right?
Launchpad's in all the DuckTales
he's in both.
too.
He's in both of them. Yeah.
Is he? Okay, he's in both things.
Darkwing.
He is the common link between the universes.
Yeah,
It's
he
kinda like
actually
your,
is. He
your
actually
Doctor
is.
Who.
And in the reboot of this one, he is like the main entry point for Darkwing Duck because Darkwing Duck has a show. It's a little meta, and he's like a big fan of the show.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So they're retconning it.
Oh, I mean, maybe a little bit.
They're rewriting the history. So
Is-
yeah, retconning.
Isn't there a character?
Oh, the definition that you just said.
that you
yes,
just
it's
said?
that.
Yes, they're doing that.
Imbecile. Is there not a character that's like a robot with a visor and a
Yeah,
unicycle?
Gizmo Duck.
Okay.
Who's played by?
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh.
Oh man, the rise and fall of that was fantastic.
He's really good in it. I like it.
I'm sure he is. That character sounded cool though until
Cheapers.
You wouldn't really know it's him. He's
Okay.
not like very
you can't hear
musical
it. You
about
can't
it.
hear his goatee through his voice.
No, you can't.
Budget King's like, he's got nothing on Rosie. She'll always be my favorite one-wheeled robot.
Just the
It's a Slide Jetsons reference.
I'm not sure I even knew Rosie had one wheel, so that's a hot take. That's a good take. Okay, last piece of information, and I think that this is just rumored. I don't know if this is confirmed, but the
Fake news.
the 2005, I believe it was, Keanu Reeves' Constantine movie, the DC property, is rumored to have a sequel to that movie, which is mind-blowing that they would redo a movie that was mediocre at best and not just re-up it and pretend like that movie didn't exist.
Out of all the things he's done and is doing, I don't know.
Do you know? Okay, I think I know what this movie is most famous for, but I wonder if you guys can remember what it might be most famous for.
I never saw it.
Okay, this is spoiler alert. If you have not seen this movie and you care about the ending, I'm going straight to the ending. as he dies and goes into like passes into the afterlife, he does like double bird middle fingers and like floats away.
Oh, neat.
Which I love. I still love. That's you do that in any movie, and that's like A+ material.
That's part of your Criterion collection.
Yes, yeah. Double bird death.
Well, I think the general public doesn't really recognize this as a comic book movie.
I don't think most people that saw it thought of it as a DC comic.
No. And, you wonder if they're going to lean into that a little more for a second one. The guy who played Lucifer yesterday, as of this recording, said that this is happening.
Which means he'll probably be in it.
I would assume so.
Because Lucifer and Hellblazer share a common alleyway, if you will. They run in the same circles.
Man, we have done a lot of news. It is time to get this podcast started. And first up, we have the Punchline comic, written by James Tynion IV and Sam Jones, with art by Mirka Indolfo. Thanks.
Before we get into this, James Tynion, shots fired.
With the book?
With the podcaster references.
Oh.
Oh, scum of the earth
we
podcasters.
hear you loud and clear, sir. And to think that we wouldn't catch on that this is specifically about First Issue Club and the harsh and real takes we give on all the books we cover? Oh, sir, you are what I would call an imbecile.
That's the real news here. James
Yeah.
Tynion takes a stab at First Issue
Lashing
Club.
out. I'm surprised Bleeding Cool hasn't covered this.
I know.
You're
You know,
throwing your career away, man. Coming after moguls like us.
he's been given a lot of credit for reviving comics during COVID, for inventing a new character that gave DC a bunch of sales. But fuck with podcasts, and that legacy is not going to last very long.
Hey, James, who's going to tell everyone about these great characters? Word of mouth? Wrong. It's podcast, buddy.
Yep.
Well, what we're referring to is Punchline in this comic documented her journey on trying to find the Joker, that she was inspired by him, wanted to understand him, and made this podcast along her journey. So we're getting kind of her origin story through that.
What's funny is when I was gonna give if I was asked to give like the synopsis of this, I was gonna say new Gotham villain inspired by true crime podcasts becomes like villain out of that. It's essentially, I feel like they were making fun of more so true crime podcasts than
your Serial, your S-Town, or whatever.
murder. Whatever the Murderino podcast. My favorite murder. There we go. Yeah.
But part of it, did it
How dare you?
Well, one thing that I think is really interesting here is that James Tynion wrote a book that we covered a few weeks ago called Department of Truth, which focuses on the idea of like the spread of knowledge and information affects enough people, then it start to become truth. And I think the same sort of narrative with like information being shared and how easily people can be manipulated and
Yeah, because it's like still just one side
right.
of her story, and everyone's like, free her, like she didn't do anything wrong. and, like,
Exactly right. She gets this
completely swayed.
great rabid following, and then it speaks to like relationships that, if you fall in love with somebody who's fascinated by this conspiracy theory, you're more willing and able to commit to that. There was some like layers of complexity here that I thought were really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And how it drives you away from other people who may not be as into
Exactly right. Which makes you further indoctrinated, right? That you're pushing people away who
who don't agree
don't
with the
agree.
podcast that you started listening to.
Yeah, right.
Because it has real world people and stories.
Totally.
So if you aren't aware, if you've been living underneath a rock in comic book world, Punchline was the new character by DC, launched in like March, I think, or
Right around Joker War
was
when that started.
the beginning of all the quarantining.
Yeah.
I feel like.
And so and that's popped off, and but was, I wouldn't say controversial. It was just like talked about as like, is she the new Harley Quinn? This is
Because she fought her pretty early on, right? And
Yeah,
like it was
there's a lot of
set up that way.
Yep. And it's like another very cute goth, like somebody that could be easily cosplayed, but not as like chaotic, like a lot more like serial killer-esque, I would say, or very like leaning into that like split personality type of like thing. So, how do you think this character holds up against Harley Quinn, I guess is my question.
Initially, to me, it seemed like a copycat character. Now, it seems like it's a answer to Harley Quinn in a new modern way that says, hey, Harley Quinn was a character that was abused and used by the Joker. Now we've got a character that put herself in that same situation, but she's the one using the Joker. I thought that was really interesting.
It's
kind
played
of
up in this book too, I think.
big time.
Yeah.
Marvel has released a bunch of like newer characters especially in X-Men, none of which caught on like Punchline. Obviously, because I think there was some intention here. But if you are looking to do a money or cash grab thing and you're in the big two, release a new character and you're going to just like have like insane sales. But then you have to ask the question, how long is this character going to stay around? Do they have good character development? Do I even like this character or care? And I think like, I like that they're investing in Punchline. And I think that Punchline out of this book, I would say, Punchline's interesting.
I think part of the benefit of having James Tynion co-write alongside Tom King on the Batman run for so long, he really got to integrate and think about his story for when he took over.
Right.
So you're immediately like, as soon as he comes on as head writer of Batman, he's introducing this character that he's got grander plans for. It's not just like, hey, here's a single story arc of something. Marvel falls into the trap a lot of saying, we're going to give this creator like a 4-issue miniseries. And maybe there's a character that you love in that, but they don't have the opportunity to grand plan those things.
Right.
So speaking of something that's supposed to make you maybe love this character, what do you think about that? This book is taking somebody who's a maniac, cult leader sort of person who's
fell in love into an infatuation, almost like Twilight, the movie status, because of her run-in with him in high school. Right?
You're talking about the Joker and her relationship with the Joker.
Sorry. Her run-in with the Joker in high school. And the one theme about this, which I love, is that everybody in Gotham has a Joker story, which I can totally relate to that. Like in Kansas City, everybody has like
a Tech 9 story.
Yes, Jason Sudeikis story, or a Puddle of Mud story, famously.
Super Jesus.
Yeah, famously from Super Jesus.
Street Fighter. Sorry, now we're just naming Kansas City things.
But anyway, yeah, I loved that, and that like she became like it's. You have to, when you write Gotham characters, all of them have they have the capability of having some type of mental illness, which is what would end them up in Arkham and not put them on death row. And then you have to like be innovative about why they're existing. And I think creating like a fan person out of this that rises above that is a really interesting arc.
Yeah, that's something relatable that makes you want to follow this character. Right.
And also super insidious because she is talking about certain things that are broken, which kind of interestingly parallels the world right now.
Like, have you seen? It reminded me of those girls that were really infatuated with the killer from the Columbine, and on the like 20-year anniversary, just like bought a ticket to Columbine, and there's a whole like kind of back end of like internet where they like share pictures and like draw hearts around his face and stuff.
Oh, freaky.
And she got arrested, but I don't know what her intention was.
Yeah.
Of obviously probably not good, but it's of that same like fan service. Or maybe Ted Bundy is a better example of what
like
happened with Ted Bundy.
Well, yeah, like hundreds of women just writing to him in jail and like how he got married. It's one of them, didn't he?
Yeah.
I feel like too, it's like, even if they weren't infatuated on that kind of like romanticized level, it still is a thing of where she's making the chaos of the Joker a little more rooted in reality and painting him in a picture that like almost legitimizes some of the stuff that he's been doing, which is all her doing and leads us to believe like she is going to be much more of a mastermind. But it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, there's a very poetic part of this book that says, I guess poetic in a sense of DC history, that's talking about the Joker's been telling this joke throughout the history of Gotham, where he's just creating chaos for no reason. But when does the joke end? And they wind into her name being Punchline, that she's more so than just like obsessing over Batman and fucking shit up for no reason. She's got an end game in mind.
And she's talking about the city's role in all of this.
Right.
Like how they benefit from the Joker and how maybe the fact that he keeps escaping is not always by, chance. And just like things that like would actually make somebody in Gotham stop and think, huh.
Yeah.
Like maybe she's got a point. Maybe the Joker's not necessarily as bad as maybe the city's got, it's just dangerous.
So she's either leading us to a point where the Joker is able to become much more dangerous, or she's going to eclipse the Joker, which I'm just fascinated by this story arc so much.
Mirka and Adolfo did the art for this.
Yep.
Yes.
And I don't think that she's been on like a full run start to finish for DC. She's done a bunch of DC books and famously a lot of covers. It would be awesome if she got thrown on a full Punchline book from start to finish.
I would love her to be the main artist for Punchline.
She was great.
I
was
think
phenomenal.
it fits. I think it really does.
Yeah. So
We initially got exposed to her with Unnatural, right?
yeah, and then Mercy, she's on right now as well. Yeah. But so she does she does amazing work, obviously.
Yeah.
Very sex positive.
Mm-hmm.
Unsacred
We met her at
is
C2E2,
one of
the
my
only comic
favorite-
Oh
convention
yeah,
of 2020.
Unsacred. Yeah, we did meet her. Very Italian.
Yes.
That's why Mike D and Budgie King relate to her
Yep.
so well.
You walked by and she gave you a wink, just like,
Yeah,
I
it
can
was
see.
like, yep, yeah, I know. I too eat lots of meat that's cured.
Pepperoni. Salami. Gabagool.
There we go.
Gabago. Yep, so that's Punchline.
This is a not thing. Did the kid grab the pizza rolls out of the oven with no gloves on?
I
didn't see
I can
that.
verify
I
that.
didn't either. I saw her grab the bag. I
There were
remember
things
seeing
coming
that
out of the
frame.
oven, and he was just like, yummy, and like he had no pot holders.
Don't you normally make pizza rolls in a microwave?
I
This
put 'em
guy
in the oven.
doesn't.
I put them in the oven.
You put them in the oven. Okay.
I've done the microwave before. I was a microwave kid though.
Oh, okay. Let's rewind.
family didn't
Let's
really-
rewind this podcast because this is true. Greg just pointed out, motherfucker pulls a hot pan of pizza rolls out of an oven with his bare hands in this comic
It's
book.
definitely not a microwave.
Chaotic evil.
He's leaning down to get them.
Oh,
The
okay.
view of it looks to be oven.
Is it a microwave?
Well, it's metal. It's a metal sheet, so it can't be a microwave.
That's true.
The pizza rolls are on a metal
Or it could
sheet.
be just a gray microwavable platform.
Merca, you tell us. In Italy, do they use pot holders to get metal sheets out of ovens? Is that a cultural
There's
thing
no
that we don't
possible
understand?
way you would let it cool down enough to where you could get it out with your bare hands.
No, because your food would be cold by
Oh,
that time.
unless he. Okay, this is what it is.
You get it out of the oven; they're fully baked, so that you could put them in the microwave.
He may not realize that he has MS, and he
Oh my
can't
God.
feel his fingers.
Oh my
Which is
God. No,
Is that
no, he
another
really
nod
can't
to the
feel his
hand-holding
fingertips.
scene later?
yeah.
He doesn't know if they're really holding hands until he looks down.
Can't actually feel the pain in his fingers. So, what an interesting little subplot they put in there.
Cracked it wide open.
And next up, we have Taskmaster, out on Marvel Comics, written by Jed McKay and art by Alessandro Vitti. Taskmaster, if you don't know, is a Marvel villain who actually has been popping back up in new Marvel shit. And
Yep.
that's why they're giving him his own book again, which I found out. If you listen to the news hit, I found that this is not the first time this happened. But Taskmaster is now getting his book that matters. and we're gonna cover it now. So it's a little bit of his not his origin story, more of just like, hey, meet Taskmaster.
A familiarization with him, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a buddy cop story in some ways.
It is. I know. What first thing I want to say about this book is that it was obviously supposed to have come out in March
Yes.
to precede at what at the time was the release date for the Black Widow Marvel movie. As you're reading this book, there are ads for Marvel comics that come out in like April 2020.
Oh, you're so right.
Yeah, there's like X Factor ads, and it's just like, wait, that book came out like 5 months ago.
I fucking own this already. What the hell?
Yeah. So my assumption is that they printed the thing, and it just like sat in a warehouse, and they waited and waited and waited for COVID to finish so they could get, the Black Widow release back on calendars, and it never happened. And they were just like, let's just release this book before it's irrelevant.
Is Taskmaster gonna be the villain in the Black Widow movie?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that at all. Okay, cool. Can I ask you guys? Can I ask y'all some questions about Taskmaster?
Yes.
Okay. Is Taskmaster's face a skull?
It's a mask.
It's a mask.
It's a unlike Red Skull, whose face is a red skull.
Is Red Skull's face a red skull?
Well, it was in.
I think there's been like some like an acid situation.
Yeah.
Where
Okay.
he got plumb burned up.
It's like more of like a red musculo, like skin issue.
But it's his-
but Red Skull sounds better.
Yeah, it is his face though. He's not wearing a mask, whereas Taskmaster wears a fucking Halloween mask.
Yeah, Taskmaster's like a normal guy. He's not like a mutant or a monster.
He even like makes the joke about like Skeletor, even though I guess
He never takes it off though. Do you ever see his real face?
That's a character that's popped around in like several like Spider-Man books and things like that, and they've had him unmasked in those.
Okay.
and he references that he can because the guy's like, "Why'd you show up in that to the golf thing?"
Okay.
And he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna risk it for this."
All right. I got two more Taskmaster questions. His power is that if he watches somebody do something, he can do it.
Yeah, they call it photographic reflexes.
He's a mimic.
in Marvel.
Okay. Can he mimic something that is beyond human capability though?
No, like if someone's power is to fly, he cannot fly.
Okay. So he's limited to like
Typical human skills.
somebody would say like beta characters, kind of like, Captain America, Hawkeye,
Well, so the interesting thing is that
Frank Castle.
God, that voice you're doing.
Yeah, I love that. Let's keep that up.
Castle.
But he couldn't like immediately develop super strength.
No.
No.
Like he couldn't immediately have the super
But-
soldier properties or anything like
To
that.
counteract that, he can learn your moves and predict what your next move is going to be. So he may not be able to knock out Steve Rogers, but he can definitely defend himself against Steve Rogers and find a weak point in his combat.
He's like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. Like, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah, but he's not.
It's not just a skill set thing, it's a specific mastery of another person's
Yeah.
motions, right? So it's more of a strategic advantage.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
Okay, so then my third question is, will this comic book, first of all, is like very on the funny era, edge of like Deadpool-esque.
No. I'd put him more in the Christopher Cantwell, Doctor Doom realm.
So that's what I was
more
I was
than
asking is
Deadpool.
like, is Taskmaster famously like comedy guy?
No, I wouldn't say so. I was very surprised that this was like a silly, fun comic. I think the silliness might have been, to Budget King's point earlier, this book is just supposed to get you kind of familiar enough with the character to just be like, I get the idea. Like before you go see the movie, if you're interested enough to read this thing, it introduces you to him.
Right.
Why make that complicated and grim? It might as well just be a fun thing, right?
This was a very accessible intro to Taskmaster.
Totally. I prefer it that way.
Okay, so the main storyline in this is that Nick Fury goes and grabs Taskmaster and is like, there's a murder, you're getting framed for it. We got to go on a joyride to figure out who did it.
Yeah.
Bingo bango.
Maria Hill's been murdered. Famous SHIELD agent.
So one of my favorite lines, I think the best line in the whole comic book, is they are on a road trip together, and apparently Taskmaster has fallen asleep. And Nick Fury says something like, I never want to do that trip again with your sleep apnea. And Taskmaster says, hey, it's a condition. I don't make fun of your eye. Which Nick Fury responds with, and that's why I like you. And it just felt like, I was like, that's such great writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also found it very, very funny. I think probably the funniest part of the book when he finds out that Black Widow's chasing him. He's like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like, he has so much bravado. And you're right, like that Deadpool-esque, like, just devil may care, like, but then he finds out that and it switches very quickly. Like, not that he gets more serious about it, but he's just like, okay, I do need your help in a bad way.
We do need to solve
I'm
this.
going to die.
To that point, though, like, this is how I figured out this was a lead up to Black Widow, because they very, like, in your face say, wait, Black Widow, the world's best assassin, the deadliest person in the world, is
Movie
going to
coming out October 12th,
Better than
2000.
this bullet list of other people that you are familiar with.
Right. They're just like really ramping up. Like, she's powerful.
I loved when he was on the run from Black Widow. He was like, okay, I can get out of this. And they did a panel replacement over his face of Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
To show that, like, this is where I got these driving skills from watching Ghost Rider. I was like, I hope they keep doing that.
I
where,
do
like,
too.
You've got this big scene, but just like pieces of it where he's imitating somebody just get covered with that actual character's like Superman's like hand like punching somebody or something.
They didn't do for the Hawkeye part, which
No,
sucked.
but he did say it. So
Yeah.
if he's not actively like
that was
stating what he's doing.
a great artistic choice
It
for
was.
that scene.
I loved it.
Every time I hear the name Taskmaster, I feel like he needs to be a bounce artist where he's like telling people what to do, and he's like, now work it, and get on the floor. Like, now bounce that ass, now bounce that ass.
That's an interesting point.
That's how I would write Taskmaster.
Send that 2 letters to the editor.
Would they have the power of suggestion? Like what would make
Yeah.
them a villain in this place?
I think that they're just like so good at tasking people, like managerial call outs over a microphone, that people just are like, oh yeah, and now I'm murdering.
Yeah, okay,
now
I
rob
guess I'll
that
bounce
bank.
my ass
Yeah.
now. I mean,
Rob that bank now. Rob that bank.
I never thought about this, but Taskmaster must be the greatest dancer of all time,
Oh, for real.
right?
All he has to do is watch anybody.
He's got Michael Jackson's moves. He's got Chris Brown, all the
Usher.
famous
he's got
good
moves
dancers.
like Jagger. I mean,
Sting-
he's got them all.
Sting's sex.
He just needs to get a sex tape.
He probably
and
read
then...
the Kama Sutra and was just like, "Oh man, I'm
got
going
this."
to
Yeah.
destroy
The
the
world's
movie."
greatest lover.
Well, but he would have to
Taskmaster.
actually watch it in action, correct? He wouldn't just be able to read.
Oh,
book.
darn! Too bad porn's not free on the internet. There's nothing to learn from. I need a stepsister in here immediately.
I need a stepsister.
That's a sly joke because apparently all porn now is fucking your stepsibling.
Oh, apparently, yeah. That's a nice. It's a nice.
So they've told us.
Somebody's
Well, the
told
5
me.
videos I watched today, that's all it's been.
For research.
Yeah, for this book. God,
They were
gross.
They're like, people who aren't into it can get past it, but we might as well just check that box for the people who
Yeah, I
aren't
guess.
into it.
Don't say she's your stepsister, but we'll just label it that.
I think that there's a person's job at like Pornhub to go back and relabel all porn as step something. So it's like
To get more hits.
It was just normal porn, but and it's actually a stepmom though. It's not in the narrative, but it's somewhere in the headline.
There's gotta be enough like SEO research done to know that makes a difference somehow.
Totally.
And it's boggling.
So funny.
I wish that like Pornhub would like double down and like go dark during November to be respectful towards us who are trying to adhere to no nut.
No, not yeah.
Because like seeing knowing the temptations out there like in my private browser is just like really difficult for me. So
At least give you a screen after you've pushed the play button that says, "You sure you want a nut, bro?"
yeah, you looking for that nut? Yeah. Maybe you can make some banana nut bread instead.
But I guess in any case, he's gonna find the crux of this, or like what's gonna be fun about the next few issues, is they're trying to infiltrate like the Hammer database, which is just like a replacement Shield. When like Secret Invasion or something killed Shield, Hammer replaced it. And it's got 3 people, and this computer detects their body language. And that's the only way you can get info from this computer that holds the answer.
And they all have to be in the same room?
And they all have to be in the same room.
Okay.
Registering within 30 seconds of each other.
So he's going to have to do some lightning fast.
So he's going to have to do some lightning fast imitation of 3 different people who are Phil Coulson, Okoye, and White Fox.
Yes.
So he's going to be in, what? America, Africa, and South Korea. And then come back to...
And you just got to do a little quick study session.
Yes.
Up close and personal.
Right.
Because he says you can't watch footage for this one.
Right.
He has to see their natural movement
Which
live and
it's a
up close.
It's a ridiculous scenario, but it's also a really fun one that gives you just like a lot of room to...
And there's no way you would not know what he's about and what he can do afterwards. So
Yeah,
perfect
right.
introduction.
Exactly.
Who wrote the dog book?
The dog. Everyone think for a second.
Okay,
Who wrote
the dog
book? Don't say any other words. Think of every book about a dog, and that it had kind of like a unique take on it that would stick to Budget King's brain.
I'm thinking Kibblesmith.
That is exactly who it is.
That's just his last name.
Caitlin and I.
What other book about a dog could he be talking
I
about?
thought maybe he meant to say
Lockjaw?
Dog Bert instead of Dog Book.
And we're back on to Dilbert.
It was definitely Kibblesmith, and I forgot.
Demolition
Lockjaw.
Man.
It's
Lockjaw. There we go. Yeah, yeah.
Because it's got Lockjaw, yeah.
Whew, man, Caitlin knows. She knows.
Why did you bring that book up?
Because it was really funny. It was like a comedy book, but
Yeah.
it was like a really also like a good character analysis. Like it was a fun book to read. Even though I couldn't remember the title of it.
Thank you for taking us on that journey. And for being a good sport about it.
Bravo.
Imbecile.
Thank you.
That was an episode.
Bite.
Uh-oh. They gave Budget King the mic to close out the show. Well, that was another episode of First Issue Club, and we are so thankful that you took the time to listen. We did some fun books, Taskmaster, Punchline. Man, do you remember those memories? Only 47 minutes ago? Well, we had them together, and we'd love to have them again with you next week. We'd like to thank Primary Color Music for doing our music. We'd like to thank the recording studio that is now the Moon for making all of our recording dreams come true each and every week. And thank you to you, the listener. Now I'm just going to shout out some random Twitter handles of people that are always commenting to us because they are great. Doug, we love you. Dumplestiltskin, Tom Bevis, PH Dwarf, Tomix Does Comics, we love you. The Wednesday Pull List, and Joe Paquette, 00 Joe Pocket. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for supporting us. Thanks for retweeting or commenting or whatever. I'll keep reading names. I'll do whatever I want. Because when you give Budget King the keys to close out the episode, that's how it goes. It's crazy. It's like another Batman villain just running amok. What's he gonna do? He's chaos. He's pure chaos. Well, one thing that's not chaotic is your patronage to this show. That is steadfast, and we're thankful for it. This is First Issue Club, signing off.